Well, let's go. We have this ongoing situation now with the shutdown, and it is ostensibly about Donald Trump and his sort of pathological desire for not even a wall, but to say that there is a wall. Now, I understand why Democrats are not constantly raising the issue of Mexico paying for the wall, because that's not the only problem with the wall. For a lot of reasons, it sets a bad precedent. It is a lot of people find it morally reprehensible, the idea of building this wall. Aside from the fact that a wall is ineffective in certain areas, it's unnecessary in other areas. It is contrary to really what our overall immigration policy should be. And, of course, $5.6 billion will not get you any semblance of what he's talking about. This is all performative. I contend, as I think we did last year at this time, maybe a little bit earlier in the year, that trading $5.6 billion and let him have his ability to say to his people, like, I'm building the wall, is worth a permanent status for DACA recipients, a path to citizenship, and permanent protected status in this country. That is a trade I would make. Don't know if it's on the table, because you got to remember, for Trump, the wall is everything, just for whatever bizarre reason. But there's a lot of people in his administration who really genuinely don't want any more brown people coming into this country and want less brown people here. That is why there is a lawsuit to protect 50,000 Haitians just steps from where we are, who are here largely as a function of a 2010 earthquake and was a cholera outbreak that followed that earthquake. And they've been in this country under a protected status.
May I just add, a human-created cholera outbreak having to do with foreign forces there.
So, but regardless, human suffering. And you don't hear a lot of people walking around going like, man, everything would be so much better in this country if it wasn't for those 50,000 Haitian people who we allowed to be here because their homes got destroyed and have now built families here and roots here. That aside, here is Donald Trump talking about the wall. And now it's really like it's getting so granular that he's literally getting into the materials. Here it is.
And as I told you, it's going to be a steel border, and that's going to give us great strength. They don't like concrete, so we'll give them
the
steel.
The question was, why do you think the Democrats are going to be okay with a steel border? And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because, like, he was he would visit building sites, and so it was just like concrete and steel. Those are the two things. Like, if they had worked with brick, maybe it would be a brick wall.
Just trying to get the deal done.
Here we go.
They don't like concrete, so we'll give them steel. Steel is fine. Steel is actually more expensive than concrete, but it'll look beautiful, and it's very strong. It's actually stronger.
It just doesn't. It's unbelievable. And there was a big story in the Washington Post about apparently no one in the administration was really aware of what would happen with the government shutdown. They all believed their own sort of delusion that it's not relevant. We have a situation where government workers at this point, they have not missed a paycheck as of yet. They get paid bi-monthly. So my understanding is they have not missed a paycheck, but they also all know that their paycheck at the very least will probably be delayed at this point. And people live paycheck to paycheck. And there's no guarantee they're all going to get paid back. Who knows how long this is going to last? But as we get closer to February, when you have farmers who have not been able to get their loans, haven't been able to get their slush funds. You're going to hear people like Joni Ernst talk a little bit more about this. You're going to hear Republicans, maybe in Kansas, talk a little bit more about this. Shelley Capito in West Virginia, when food stamps and other federal assistance starts to get undercut, you're going to start to hear about this. You won't hear it in Kentucky, even though that they will be suffering because Mitch McConnell is not a human being and Rand Paul has to pretend like the federal government doesn't do anything. You're going to hear Susan Collins talking more about this, and at one point, that they're gonna break.
Hold up.
So we will continue to follow this. What's this next one? Is this him talking about the? Yeah, let's go to number 2, because here's Donald Trump saying something that I don't think anybody believes, even his own people. I'm not even sure his own people would be happy about it, frankly. But it's a little bit, but listen to it.
Mr. President, can you relate to the pain of federal workers who can't pay their bills?
I can relate, and I'm sure that the people that are on the receiving end will make adjustments. They always do, and they'll make adjustments. People understand exactly what's going on. But many of those people that won't be receiving a paycheck, many of those people agree 100% with what I'm doing.
Did you hear that? I mean, it was hard to hear. But he said, yeah, I can relate to not having that money, and people will make do. They always do. They always do. And in fact, many of those people who are not getting a paycheck agree with me.
I can totally relate to that. It's like when dad says, give me a couple of days before I come in and cash out your casino. And you're like, whoa, I'm in a tough spot here because I have a couple of assault victims to pay off. And there's about a 48-hour window, but you make adjustments.
I get so many letters, and oddly from my own stationery, from people who support everything I'm doing.
The handwriting's so similar. You know, there's a lot more unity in this country.
This is not unique to Trump. That notion of people will make do, they always do. In other words, like, nobody's come and tried to burn down my house. There isn't like masses of people who have come to try and burn down my house or pull me out of my home. Or I don't see the people, you know, if I don't see the suffering in front of me, it must not happen. They must be able to just deal with themselves. I mean, that sentiment, put aside the complete total lie that any of the people not receiving their checks are in favor of this. But that sentiment that they'll work it out, they always do, that is exactly the sentiment that has been shared by the wealthy in this country, largely speaking, for decades. That it'll be fine. They'll get by. Look, we all have struggles. And, you know, I remember that time where that person broke up with me, or I had that argument with my mom. That was hard. And the idea that, like, well, they're not sure if they'll be able to pay for their kid's dental appointment next week, or don't know if I'll be able to buy presents for them for Christmas because we may not have money coming in for weeks, or we got to cut back on the heating, or, you know, it's just going to be rice and beans because we only have so much money, or they're going to repossess my car, or we're not going to be able to make a mortgage payment. I mean, all of these things, they'll get by. They always do. Millions of people lost their homes in the wake of the financial crisis because there were thousands of bankers who were like, society will absorb the problem. That's the mentality that is not unique to Trump. He's just too stupid to realize, like, I shouldn't say this out loud. All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, Julian Zelizer,